Hello and welcome to today's video where we go over Worlds 2024, Swiss Stage Day 7. G2, T1, BLG, PSG, then preview the two series for tomorrow. Went 2-0 in predictions today. Not difficult predictions, really. The expected winners did win, but the way we got there was a little bit different than I anticipated at the very least. I thought G2 would take a game off of T1, and although one of the games was close, T1 actually never really relinquished control of that game in terms of stats and gold. And then in PSG BLG, I mean, PSG hard through game one, and we'll talk about it. So, G2 T1, when we look at control of these games, T1 were in control for 93% of each game. Even in the instance where they had a game where they got, three inhibbed. They lost a key team fight around a Drake. G2 were able to take the Drake, take Baron, and then, push that and turn that into multiple inhibitors. However, they had given up so many stats in terms of Drakes and gold that even after that Baron and taking three inhibs over T1, technically once the Baron is done and the buffs are gone, the Drake stats still remain for T1, and they actually were still ahead. And that is why they're able to actually defend. Like, I feel like a lot of people probably were like, oh my God, look, T1 are defending three inhibs. It's such, like, yes, there are a lot of minions coming in and things like that, but that's actually, if T1 can get through that moment, right, and just get over that little hump there, they are ahead in stats and got even more gold because they had all these minions they were just feasting on, and they win the game. And, despite the Goldly not being massive, T1 were always just slightly ahead when we combine everything. So, Faker 15-4 and 19, 28% of damage on Ari in both games. We saw almost a salty run back in game two. I mean, I want to say half the champions or more remain the same in draft. Guma 6-3-24, Jin both games. Caps 5-8 and 17, 29% of damage. Oriana both games. So, decent shockwaves out of Caps in this one, but there were moments still where Faker did get the better of him on the Ari. And outside of the one key team fight, pairing with Yike on the Nocturne, I mean, T1 found a way, especially in the game where G2 arguably were making a very strong comeback and got close. I mean, Owner did steal a Baron from Yike, and that kind of ended all of G2's chances to actually completely turn around that game. Yike leaving a lot to be desired. We go back and forth between Razork and Yike, and I think we're finding out which one is going to int less, and maybe that'll be the top Western jungler after this tournament. It's hard to really tell. Hell, the way Inspired played on Nunu, who really knows? In terms of team fights, I mean, Zeus was super strong, although I'm not mentioning his stats here because he was not the leader in KDA or damage. I thought Zeus was a massive difference maker in this one over BB. And honestly, there was no individual of G2 that I considered to be better than a T1 player in this one. It was just a matter of, everybody had issues. Like Mickey inting his face off on Nautilus. Like, that's going to happen, but I think he died like 8 times. It's not a great look. You don't want to die 8 times. Obviously. Hans, I feel like he almost dealt as much damage as Caps in this one, but Hans leaves a bit to be desired oftentimes, and then they give him a Draven in game 1, and that just was not enough, not nearly enough. It's trying to talk, trying not to, I don't want to talk too negatively about G2, but I also don't want to talk too, it's, the way to kind of look at this is, T1 were the better team. G2 didn't come out with anything weird either. And I did think about that when I was watching this, just came to me. There was nothing, interesting about these drafts from G2. It's pretty much the same draft. They were trying to run the Nocturne Ori combo that we've seen since Gen G were the first ones to bring it out at this event. So, it's not anything special. And Caps made it sound like there might be things cooked up by them when they were talking on the post-game analyst desk a couple days ago. And I mean, maybe they were saving it and expected to lose to T1 anyways, and want to save it for the final round where they're playing maybe a Team Liquid or a D Plus Kia or somebody, and feel like they could beat those teams. Will have a better chance if they pull those compositions out. I mean, it makes some sense. But this one, I mean, you needed to do something like that, in my opinion, to beat T1, and it just didn't come to fruition. Even if they did have a game where they did crawl back into it, they were in it, but T1 still had a slight lead. BLG PSG. So BLG 2-0. Elk 14-2-18, 32% of damage. Misfortune and Kaisa. Bin 9-1-15 on Jackson both games. Betty 11-6-8, 32% of damage. Ezreal, Zaya. So game one, PSG were ahead for 83% and lost. They had nearly a 7,000 gold lead and lost. Had Soul Point and lost. Talk about disappointing. Talk about really disappointing. I don't root for teams. I don't really root for teams. I don't have a favorite team. I root for narratives, and the Maple narrative was something that I latched onto. Levi as well. In that these guys, this is their final run here, and there's so much hope in that one. But Maple on Yone is not a Maple champ. Yone, no, that's just not a Maple champ. And in the end, was it his fault necessarily? No, but the Yone was not as strong as it needed to be in those very late game team fights as Ben came online and took over. Elk leads in damage. Elk's getting a lot of the praise, but honestly, Ben was a difference maker in this one. He had great flanks. Honestly, I thought Ben was excellent, especially in their comeback in game one. And then in game two, BLG were ahead every minute of the game. Technically, PSG never had a gold lead at all, let alone being able to take a Drake, but I think BLG took the first one, so in the end it washed out, and BLG still are ahead. So, like, in the end, BLG actually come out 54-46 in terms of control of this series, minute by minute. It's just so disappointing that PSG end up, I mean, Maple's career's over, right, if he retires. It's just, I circle back to that, and I'm happy that afterwards I did talk about in the studio, in the studio after the series that Hay gave Maple his flowers. I do believe that is something that was not talked about enough at this event. And, hopefully Levi gets the same praise tomorrow if the result is the same. But, in terms of team fights, Elk on the MF, I mean, stand in the right place, hit R. Yes, he did have nice struts or whatever and things like that, but I thought Ben was massive. Game 2, Knight played Jace. That was fun. Now, in the end, in the late game, I thought he left a lot to be desired, and Ben had to bail his ass out. But, outside of that, I mean, Knight even said after the game that he wishes he kind of didn't play Jace. Jace is not a solid pick, so maybe we don't see Jace anymore. If Jace was meta, T1 would be a scary team with Zeus being able to play both Jace and Yone in top. T1 carry-oriented top lane meta would be a death sentence for most of these teams here, except BLG with Bin. I mean, it would still be competitive and could go either way. But, just BLG out team fought PSG in game 2, big time. And, by the way, BLG played Shun, right? And they won both games. And I do believe that depending on what you want, both players have value in Shun and Wei. Is it really fair to Wei? I don't believe so, because BLG were not playing teams as weak as PSG when Wei lost, but I mean, it is what it is, right? They've played with Shun the majority of the season, the majority of the last 2 years. So if they want to go back to him, it does make sense. Wukong more of a Shun champ anyways, I believe by win rate. And, at that point you play him in game 2 as well. We'll see if they go forward with a 6-man roster, a true 6-man. In my opinion, speaking about 6-man rosters, by the way, there's different versions of one. You have ones where guys just substitute outright. We look at DRX 2022. We look at maybe IG 2018. That Duke played 5 games, and I think the Shy may played 12 or something. I don't know how many games total the Shy played. Um, and Duke kind of played against minor region teams. I think he only played one game against an Eastern team, Eastern major region team. So that's a thing. Then you look back at T1 with Easy, Hoon, and Faker, and I think that's more of your typical six-man roster in that Easy, Hoon, and Faker. You didn't know who was playing game by game, necessarily. And that's more of a six-man roster than at least BLG will be. Unless Way does play in BLG's next series, then I could honestly say, this might be a six-man roster because they intend on going back and forth between these guys instead of just outright saying, hey, this is the guy that we're going with going forward unless he really ints his face off. Just something to think about. It's just different ways to look at what roster builds and how you utilize players. Preview for tomorrow. Fnatic Weibo. They played at Worlds 2023. Weibo would win 2-1 in that series. 7 of the 10 starters are the same. Xiaohu and Light match up into Humanoid and Noah once more. Differences. Weibo now have Breathe and Tarzan instead of the Shy and Weiwei. And then Trimby is no longer with Fnatic and they have June. So, Xiaohu Light, 27, 10, and 30, 52% of damage. Humanoid Noah, 12, 16, 26, 57% of damage in the loss. Weibo are capable of going to LPL finals, and they're also capable of losing tomorrow. So, it depends which version comes out. I don't think Oscar can take advantage of Breathe. Tarzan into Razork. Tarzan certainly is better than Razork. Mid lane, Xiaohu and Humanoid. This will be a close matchup. Laning-wise, I expect after laning phase it to still be close, and it's going to be who can impact the mid to late game more. Bot lane duo, I do give to Light and Crisp. So there is that. Team Liquid and GAM Esports. Last time they played was Worlds 2023, and GAM would win 2-1. Half the starters are the same. So GAM bot side no longer in the mix here. Katie, we saw with Viking, so he's obviously now with GAM. And then I don't know if Slater and Palette or Palette, I don't know who really was investigating, who wasn't. So many from Vietnam were. So I don't know where those guys are. Team Liquid, Summit, Pioshik, no longer with Liquid, and now they have Impact and Umpty. So there is a difference here. Kiaya and Levi last year went 15, 10, and 45 for 47% of their team's damage on top side. That's a lot. Kiaya, carry-oriented top laner, has been for a long time with GAM Esports. APA, Eon, Core JJ, 15, 25, 23, 59% of damage in the loss. So, this matchup. You'd like to think Impact can handle Kiaya, keep him under control, keep him from, taking over the game. That's huge. If Impact does do that, that really nullifies a lot of what GAM can offer, because I don't believe Emo is that guy, and I really don't think Easy Love is that guy. So then you get to Levi Umpty. I'd also like to think Umpty can limit Levi, but Levi is better than Umpty. So that's kind of the thing. And this is a Levi, this could be Levi's last series, right? So we want him to perform at a high level just for, at least I do, for that. To remind people, just like I said about Maple going into today. I want people to remember Levi for how good he is. And we saw in his last series against Mad Lions, when he played Wukong and Nocturne, those are Levi champs. Look at his win rate over his career. They're like 80% win rate. Like, those are champions people remember for him. Like, 2017 Worlds or something, his Nocturne is his legacy series, but then we think about just his whole entire career and just how dominant he's been domestically and how competitive he's been internationally. He's played in the LPL a bit. 100 Thieves never gave him a chance in the LCS, unfortunately. Maybe who knows what would have happened with his career otherwise. But an excellent player, deserves an opportunity in the Team Liquid, and they beat him last year. Is it going to be a repeat? I don't know. In terms of other matchups, mid lane, APA and Emo, I'd like to think APA has the advantage there. Bot lane duos, I'd like to think that Team Liquid have the advantage there. So it's going to be top side versus bot side, and we'll see who gets it done. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, like it. Subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, become a YouTube supporter, and hope to see you again tomorrow.